Hello, everybody. Man, what a game. What a pretty long game too. It took just about like the entire almost the entire 3 hours. A lot of reviews in the first half that kind of extended it. But I am Ryan from the Sports Carnage podcast, and we are here to react to the Michigan-Nebraska game that just ended. If you guys haven't heard of the Sports Carnage podcast, or you have heard of it before, either way, our link is in the description on the Facebook description right here if you're watching this right now. Or if you're watching this on YouTube later, you can find that link as well as all of our other links down in the description below. So let's get to the let's get to the game. A really wild game, especially in the second half. Michigan really controlled the first half. They went into halftime up 13-0, and while you probably didn't feel great about only having 13 points, you felt great about the defense. If you were on Twitter like I was, you saw a lot of talk of, Michigan's got like this playoff defense, and then a totally different story in the second half. Nebraska scores 29 points in the second half, 22 in the third quarter, and looked like they obviously had a real shot to win that game before the defense that we talked about came up and had a really big strip fumble on Taylor Martinez in the last 2 minutes, and then Michigan was able to kick a field goal from there. Shout out to Jake Moody. I don't know all the kickers in the country, but Jake Moody certainly seems like he's one of the best kickers in the country. At least I don't ever feel nervous when he's kicking. And maybe that's because I'm not a Michigan fan myself. So I'm a little more, there's not so many nerves. And if he misses, then my team hurts. But he just seems like he's a really good kicker. I think he was 8-9 at some point in today's game. And I don't know if that was the beginning, but he's over 90% from the year. Or on the year at least, because he was for sure 9-10, and then I think he hit 2 more after that. But really solid college kicker. Has nice range, and he seems like he makes all the easy ones. I was seeing if we had any questions there. One thing, just because we've talked about the defense a lot, the second half was definitely a different story than the first half. Nebraska was able to get in somewhat of a groove. It seemed like their passing game worked for them, kind of whenever they needed it. I'm actually surprised they didn't pass a little bit more because they had over 10 yards in attempt and probably about 15-ish or so yards per completion. So they were able to move the ball through the air. It seemed like they wanted to run the ball a little bit too much, at least what I thought. I thought they should have taken advantage of some of the givings that Michigan's just that their coverage unit was having, and obviously that didn't happen. And credit to Michigan's defense, obviously, for not that I thought they played all that well, but they made the big play when they needed to in the end, and that's what you're going to see a lot of times in college, right? Unless you're Georgia, you don't have this overly dominant defense. Even if you're thinking about Alabama, you look at the TV screen right now, Alabama just gave up, is literally in the process of giving up their 38th point. Texas A&M just scored a touchdown. So usually in college, you're not going to get some of these defenses that shut down everybody the entire game. So really, what kind of makes you stand out in college and what allows you to survive in advance like Michigan did today was being able to get those turnovers when they mattered. And I think Michigan had 3 turnovers. They forced 3 turnovers. They didn't have 3 themselves. But I think they had 3 turnovers the entire game. I know Martinez had the pick when Dax Hill was on the ground. And then they had the one fumble, and then I think they had the fumble where obviously they stripped Martinez, and then I believe they had another fumble that Michigan was able to recover. Oh, but it only says 2 turnovers here. So I think what I'm thinking about is the Michigan's punt fumble that they were able to recover. But regardless, they were able to win the turnover battle, and obviously the last turnover is kind of what helped them win the game. But overall, probably not a good showing for the defense, but they were to hold off in the first half, and then kind of survive that onslaught that Nebraska was bringing in the second half. And then as far as the offense goes, I think probably the biggest debate from this game will be, what do you do with Cade McNamara and JJ McCarthy? And not that JJ got to get in and throw any, many passes. It says here he was 0 for 1. I don't really remember the pass that he threw. I know it came in a couple times for the run game, but Cade obviously had the one pick, which seemed like at the time, it kind of be disastrous for Michigan for him to throw an interception in that scenario. I think by that point it was. It might not have been 7-13 with Nebraska, trying to get back in the game. But it was obviously a close game. And then, he missed one of his receivers downfield, which would have been an easy touchdown. He just overthrew him. And I think overall he just didn't really look too sharp. And I think, from this game you'll be hearing a lot of, kind of J.J. McCarthy should take over the reins, especially with Michigan's next couple of games that they have coming up on their schedule. They have Northwestern next week, and then they have Michigan State. And Northwestern, if you're going to start J.J. McCarthy, you're going to do it because there are 3 games left on your schedule where you think you can probably lose, right? That's Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State. And you don't want to just throw them in there against either one of those teams, although Michigan State's defense isn't that great, so that might not be, the toughest test for them, but it's still on the road against a rival, and you obviously don't want to send a quarterback into that situation. So if Michigan is going to make the switch, I think it will happen, before the Northwestern game, and then it'll play the entire Northwestern game, because Michigan could have any one of you at quarterback and or myself and still beat Northwestern. I think they probably should. I think McCarthy gives the team a higher ceiling than what Cade does. And I know Cade, his thing is that he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. But I just think if you want to accomplish the things you want to accomplish this season, I do think that eventually, they're going to have to switch to J.J. McCarthy, because I don't see Michigan beating like Ohio State or Penn State with Cade McNamara under center. They can beat Michigan State if they have Cade, because I don't think Michigan or Michigan State is on the level of either Ohio State or Penn State. But, I mean, if Clifford's not playing for Penn State, who knows, I guess, really. But I think McCarthy gives Michigan a higher ceiling. And, you obviously, if your hope is to win the Big Ten and, make the college football playoff, I think you should put him in now and let him learn what he can against Northwestern. Let him have like a tough game against Michigan State, because even if Michigan lost to Michigan State and then they went on to run the table and win the Big Ten, that's probably still enough to push them in the playoff. So one loss to either Michigan State, Ohio State, or Penn State probably doesn't kill them. The only one that might would be Ohio State, because I expect Ohio State to win the rest of their Big Ten games, and obviously if you lose to Ohio State, you're going to lose that tiebreaker. But I don't know. That's just the way I'm thinking of it. I do think it's time to kind of pull the trigger. Otherwise, for Michigan, they had success, running the ball. Hassan Haskins, 6 yards a carry. Blake Corum, almost 7 yards a carry. Both those guys did really well, and I thought Michigan did a really good job of mixing the two and not giving it, like 8 straight carries for Hassan or 9 straight carries for Blake or something like that. I thought they did a good job of mixing that up, and I thought they did a good job of exploiting some of the pass over the middle. When Nebraska had the lead late in the game on 2 separate possessions, I think Michigan was able to hit one of their tight ends for like just over the middle, where it seemed like kind of everything else was covered. And I thought that was a good job of them exploiting kind of where Nebraska was lacking in coverage. And when you're in a close game like this, it's those small things that that can kind of decide the game for you. The Nebraska team is a great team. They fought and fought. Our defense needs to step it up. Nebraska's not a great team. I know they played both of our teams tight, but Nebraska's not. They're not a great team. They're probably not even a good team. You look at their record. What are they, 1-4? 3-4. Why they played so many games? 3-4, 1-3 in the conference. That's probably about where they're at. But no, Nebraska's not a really good team. Scott Frost needs to be fired. I think Scott Frost will get fired. Got to tip your hat to Nebraska. They've been in every game that they lost. Very pleased to see Michigan can stay in and grind out a game and find a way to win. So that's the other thing for Michigan, right? Is they hadn't trailed all year. So there was talk of like how would they respond to the adversity of trailing. And obviously today, they responded to it well. The offense was able to get back the lead when they were trailing. Now again, they weren't trailing by 10 points or 14 points or anything crazy like that. But their offense was able to answer when they were trailing, and the defense was able to make the play at the end, not when they were trailing, but when the game was tied, to give the offense, back the ball, to be able to score. So, there is value in games like this and in games like the one Michigan had against Rutgers, where Michigan didn't trail that game, but it was still, like a tough, kind of fight it out game. You can't expect just to blow everyone out all the time. And even some of these teams where you looked at Michigan's schedule, and maybe before the season, if you thought Michigan was a little bit worse than obviously what they've shown, you probably looked at a game like Rutgers. You might have looked at a game like Nebraska and thought it was a toss-up game, right? And then as the season progressed and Michigan becomes, 3-0 after beating Washington, at that time, then you're probably thinking like, oh, Michigan has, you're looking at Nebraska, you're looking at Rutgers, and you're like, oh, now those are just easy wins. But I think at the same time, going on the road in the Big Ten, especially at night, in front of like a really big crowd. Like I said, I don't think Nebraska is a very good team, but the crowd certainly brought it. And Nebraska was able to have Michigan against the ropes, and then Michigan, found a way to fight back and obviously pull out the victory. We are leaving way too many scoring opportunities on the field. I don't know how many scoring opportunities they left on the field today. Maybe you guys can enlighten me on that, but just kind of like trying to replay the game in my head. I don't remember too many times where I thought Michigan could have got points that they didn't. It's not like they missed any field goals. And Cade's interception, their lone turnover wasn't like in the it wasn't like in the red zone or even on Michigan side of the field or anything like that. Go blue, a win is a win. Absolutely. Survive in advance. Every team is going to have games like this. Again, as we speak, Alabama is tied with Texas A&M, who in Texas A&M is 3-2 right now, and Alabama is the number one team in the country. And A&M has the ball, and if you're going by win probability, A&M probably is going to win the game. But if Alabama ends up winning, you don't apologize for a win. We weren't the only ones who struggled against the very solid Nebraska team. Again, I don't want us to keep doing this. Either Michigan or Michigan State fans saying that Nebraska is a solid team. I don't think they are. I think both Michigan and Michigan State are levels above Nebraska. Even with that being said, obviously Michigan State probably should have lost to Nebraska, and the Michigan, you could argue they should have lost. It's a little bit more clear for State that they shouldn't have beaten them. But I thought this game obviously could have gone either way at the very least. Michigan got lucky tonight. If not the fumble, Nebraska gets a field goal or touchdown for the win. I kind of agree with that. Yeah, I mean, if you get a field goal or touchdown, there's 2 minutes left. Michigan only has 2 timeouts at that point. But at the same time, I mean, that's why you play the game, right? And there's no guarantee Nebraska makes the field goal. There's no guarantee they get a first down after that. Although I probably agree with your sentiment overall. It's certainly not guaranteed. There was some luck to it. Like, why wouldn't Martinez just kind of go down or stop moving after he got the first down? There's not a whole lot of reason to try and keep churning for yards at that point, knowing that you only need a field goal to win and you already got the first down. But, I mean, he did, and, he didn't quit, so Michigan's defenders didn't quit. And then one of them was able to, I think it was Hawkins, right, who was able to snatch the ball out and then get Michigan in great field position to kick a field goal. Bye week coming up. Yeah, I think you're talking about where I was talking about their next two games. Yeah, they do have a bye week this week. It's even more reason for me, man, to put McCarthy in. You get him for a bye week. You get him 2 weeks essentially. You can get him like a week of just first team reps and then a week of normal game prep that you go in for Northwestern. And I think that's probably the way that I would handle it. Will they? Who knows? They're undefeated. They haven't lost with Cade. So there's probably a thought like, hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I just think if you want to accomplish, what you think you can accomplish this year, then I think J.J. McCarthy needs to be the starting quarterback. J.J. should take over. McNamara hasn't looked really good at all throwing the ball, especially the long ball. Yeah, he's and I thought Nebraska did a good job of covering some of those deep balls that Cade was trying to hit. But even on Michigan's last drive, maybe not the drive they scored on, but it might have been, but Cade had a deep ball where it really looked like a duck and it was in the air. It was good coverage, but I don't know, better coverage. It looked like it could have been picked, and obviously those are just plays that you can't have. Him missing a touchdown when I think they were either down 3 or the score was tied. And those are just things that you can't have if you're Michigan. And that's not to say McCarthy won't make mistakes, obviously, but I think again I would just go with the higher upside, which I think is kind of undoubtedly what McCarthy brings. JJ should take over. Oh, sorry, I just read that one. Bye week coming up. It's about making plays when needed. Not lucky how it goes. Was Martinez's fault for not going down? 100%. You have to capitalize on other teams' mistakes, and Michigan was able to do that. And just capitalizing on their mistakes doesn't mean a turnover or a penalty. In this case, it was a turnover, but it was a mental error, right? Martinez probably should have gone down, but he didn't. And Michigan recognized that the play was still going on, and it's probably really easy at that point where the play's probably about to be blown dead because it's just one of those piles of players that's not really going anywhere. So again, just to keep ripping the ball out and keep trying to get it out and eventually do it, but before the refs blow it dead. That's absolutely a credit to the defense. Why would you want to replace a quarterback if he's 6-0? Again, right? Again, like I said, I just think McCarthy gives Michigan a higher ceiling, and I think he gives them a better chance to beat Ohio State and win the conference and make it to the playoff than Cade does. Because I don't see so McCarthy, I think, gives them a better chance to and Alabama just lost. Look at that. So I think McCarthy, he gives them a better chance to lose some of these other games too. But I think he gives them a better chance to eventually win the games that they need to win. And I think Cade gives them almost no chance to, beat Ohio State at the end of the year. And not that you can't have a good year, but I think your good year, you'd rather essentially go for the gusto and go for the Big Ten and the playoff shot. And I just don't think that's realistic with Cade. Because the level of competition will get harder from here on. McNamara cannot throw an accurate long ball, and he is not a running threat. Yeah, and you already seen them obviously bring in JJ when they need when they need to have a running threat or when they just want to throw the defense off. And I think if you're going to do it now, you kind of have to, right? Because if Cade beats Michigan State, probably no matter how he looks, unless he's just god awful. But if he's god awful, they're not going to beat Michigan State. But I think if he beats Michigan State, there's almost no way that Michigan does pull him. So I think the optimal time would be to do it now on the bye week before Northwestern. Because if you do it after a loss, that doesn't really make sense either. You might as well just try and get all the wins that you can, unless Ohio State slips up or Penn State slips up or something. I guess Penn State already lost. But unless Ohio State slips up. So again, I would do it now. I can understand the argument for not doing it. Like you said, they are 6-0. They obviously haven't lost yet, but I don't think they're 6-0. Because of what Cade McNamara is doing. I don't necessarily think they're 6-0 in spite of what Cade is doing either. It's not like he's playing horrible. I just don't think he gives you a shot to beat some of those. I think he gives you less of a shot to beat some of those better teams on your schedule. But like I said, I think that'll be the main talking point coming out of this game. Other than that, again, not so much really to talk about. I didn't like the play calling when Michigan was up 32-29. Essentially, I didn't like playing for the field goal because they weren't up 32-29 yet, I guess. I didn't like playing for the field goal there. They had three straight runs on that kind of series, and kind of forced themselves to take a field goal. They forced Nebraska to use their timeouts, but Nebraska still had like a minute and 7 seconds left, which is an eternity in college. And Nebraska got to about the 50-yard line, and then Michigan's defense again made the plays that they needed to after that. But I didn't. I wish Michigan would have been a little bit more aggressive there and got a first. If he got one first down, then they could have just kicked the field goal to win it. Eventually, it didn't end up, kind of biting them, but just in general, playing conservative like that when I don't think it'll behoove you in most cases. Reminds me of Drew Henson and Tom Brady. I'm sure you're talking about Cade. The Cade and JJ split. I got you. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really alive for that whole debate. Like, I was alive, but I was very young. So I don't exactly know how it went down. I've heard stories of it, but there's nothing, nothing like really being there. I don't know, it would seem to me like the talent gap, at least in college, would be higher from what McCarthy and what McNamara gave you. But from what I understand, Drew Henson was hailed just as much as McCarthy was. Yep, October 30th, the Michigan State game figures to be a good one. Now they have two common opponents, and Michigan probably looked better against Nebraska, and Michigan State looked better against Rutgers. So there's not, if you're going to look at common opponents and say how'd they go for that, it's probably 1-1 right now. And we'll just have to wait on the 30th to see. I think each team has things that the other team can exploit. Like I said, I thought Michigan's defense played very poorly in the second half today against kind of both the run and the pass. And Michigan State's a very balanced team, and I still don't think Michigan State's defense is very good, especially in the secondary. And we saw today, Michigan State ended up winning comfortably, but some of the coaching decisions and some of the errors, you can't have those against good teams, like Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, and just kind of the tougher teams that you're going to play on your schedule. So I think that game will be very interesting. I don't see a huge advantage one way or the other, honestly. Not yet. I mean, maybe something comes about that'll change my mind in these next 3 weeks here. But both teams have a bye week in that span. Michigan's is next week. Michigan State's is the week before they play Michigan. So who knows? Yeah, State has a better offense. I think Michigan has a better defense though. But yeah, I think Michigan State has a better offense. So we'll kind of see. And obviously, if Michigan makes a switch to J.J. McCarthy, their offense is going to look totally different than what it does with Cade McNamara. So that might, honestly, that might not even matter. And Michigan might be getting Roman Wilson back for the Michigan State game. He didn't play today, and could that that could obviously attribute to some of the some of the passing game woes that they had, but. That's a guy that might be back too. So, I mean, we'll see. I think these teams are still going to look a whole lot different when the 30th comes. I do expect them both to be undefeated, which will be pretty hype. But, I mean, if you're going to ask me who's going to win right now, I'm a Michigan State fan, so I would be biased. You're going to call me biased if I say Michigan State, and if you say Michigan, I'm going to call you biased. So that's kind of the way it goes right now. But my laptop is about to die. I thought I got plugged in. Apparently, it's not plugged in. I just had the charger port plugged in like an idiot. where it's, not plugged into the wall or the outlet. It's just my cord's plugged into where it needs to be on the computer. But it's kind of what we had to say anyway. So I guess it's, divine intervention. Again, Alabama loss, which I think everybody's happy about. But I am Ryan again from the Sports Carnage Podcast. We're obviously going to be talking about these two games because, man, what games on the podcast that's going to drop next week. So make sure you guys listen to that and subscribe to it so you get notifications when we drop on Podbean, Spotify, and Apple Podcast. And then you guys can find our Facebook link here in the description on this Facebook video. And if you're going to watch this on YouTube after, at Sports Carnage on YouTube, you'll find all of our links to all of our social medias, our Facebook, our Twitter, as well as our podcast links as well. So 100 different places to find us. No excuse to not be listening. We will do this again for the Lions game tomorrow. I'll make sure my laptop is plugged in and charged for that one. But if you guys are professional football fans, join us at that time as well, and we'll do, kind of the same thing, some back and forth, a little bit of analysis. It'll probably be a little bit more somber because the Lions, they just keep disappointing us. But we hope we don't disappoint you guys. Thank you so much. If you're watching this on Facebook right now, love you. If you're watching this on YouTube afterwards, not quite as appreciated, but still very much appreciated. Again, go listen to the podcast. Thank you guys, and have a safe night.